Several dozen men from Russian Zelenogorsk were taken by their relatives to the war in Ukraine. All of them are mobilized. First, they are promised to be sent to the educational unit in Novosibirsk and from there to the front line.
Now the moment has come again when you put on a military uniform and go to perform military combat missions.
Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu is planning to increase the size of the Russian army to 1.5 million people in 3 years. But even now, amid the huge losses in Ukraine, there is a catastrophic shortage of soldiers, analysts say.
The normal army structure resembles a pyramid. There are very few generals, a bit more colonels and so on. The pyramid expands towards the base, but the Russian army began to look more like an oval. The base was removed from the pyramid. There are too many mid-level officers now. They have no one to command. It got to the point that some of them had only warehouses with equipment under their command. Dmitry Gorenburg, military expert of the American Analytics Center CNA, in an interview with the Russian service of the Voice of America.
To remedy the situation, Russia decided to reform the army and to increase its number by a third. For this, the bar of military age will be raised to 30 years, but it will unlikely help to satisfy the shortage of personnel, the American expert believes.
What reform are you talking about? In my opinion, this is a gesture of desperation. They lack human resources. Steve Blank, analyst at the Institute of International Policy, in an interview with the Russian service of the Voice of America.
150,000 mobilized people are already being trained at military training grounds. This is a strategic reserve for conducting the so-called military special operation in Ukraine. To continue it further, the Kremlin needs to increase the size of the army. But doing this at the expense of contract soldiers, as they plan in Moscow, is unlikely to succeed. Former Russian economy minister Andrei Nechayev believes that this will weaken the country's economy and lead to numerous negative consequences.
Everything is obvious here. At the same time, the budget deficit will increase. So far, it is not that dramatic, up to 3%. And for about a year and a half, it is possible to hold on even without borrowing, only at the expense of the pot-belly, the National Welfare Fund. But if everything drags on, then the Ministry of Finance will have to actively enter the capital market and make borrowings, which of course will become more and more expensive. Andrei Nechayev, Minister of Economy of Russia, 1992-1993, in an interview with the Russian service of Voice of America.
The Kremlin considers the mobilized to be a good alternative to contract servicemen.
We are at the forefront. They said that mobilized men would not be sent to the war, but mobilized were sent to the front line. The command is very weak. The army is a disappointment.
Therefore, the Kremlin is planning a second wave of mobilization. Putin may start it in the near future. Reported by Diana Kolesnik, Natalia Husak, Volodymyr Штангелов, UATV News.